My name is Rita Pierre, and I am the founder of Black Ivy Media. I am also the director and producer of the film For Anxious Girls. I want to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for watching this film. Your presence here is an acknowledgement of the importance of this topic, and it really gives me hope that together we can make a difference. This documentary sheds light on the often unseen battles that Black professional women face, and it is a heartfelt plea to recognize our struggles with anxiety and depression and to create a supportive environment for our healing. We cannot ignore the pain and challenges faced by professional Black women. It's our responsibility to stand with them. Your presence here today is just the beginning, and I urge you to take action beyond this film. Engage in meaningful conversations, spread awareness, and challenge the stigmas surrounding mental health in our community. I would even take it a step further by urging you to put pressure on our governments. Mental health needs to be a priority. Let us create a space where Black professional women feel safe and supported, and where our voices are heard and validated. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey, because it was certainly a journey. Together, we can transform the lives of Black professional women and build a society that uplifts, empowers, and embraces their well-being. My name is Rita Pierre. I'm an attorney licensed to practice in New York, and I am from Brooklyn, New York.
All right, so my name is Audrey Sineas, and I'm from Brooklyn, the one and only. However, I currently live on Long Island. I'm like a suburban girl now. And I am currently a registered nurse.
I'm Christelle Frank. I'm originally from Crown Heights in Brooklyn, New York, and currently I'm a postdoctoral research fellow.
My name is Samara Bennett. I'm a licensed clinical social worker practicing in the states of New York. I am a psychotherapist, and I'm the owner of a private practice, Samara Bennett Counseling and Consulting. I'm also an author of a self-help book, Personal Development, titled Intentionally Minding the Business of Me, which navigates 10 strategies to help build a mindset that connects you to your most favorite version of self.
My name is Danielle Jackson. I am originally from Chicago. I live in New York City now, and I am a criminal defense attorney.
My name is Debbie Lewis. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, Brooklyn in the house, and I'm a small business owner, a professor, and a community leader.
Hi, I am Lyle Badamosi. I am a business and legal affairs executive in the entertainment industry. I'm also a lawyer, and I'm also the designer and founder of Lyo G, a luxury women's wear brand, lifestyle brand with a focus on professional working women.
So I wanted to create a film highlighting anxiety and depression in professional Black women, because as a professional Black woman myself, I struggled with anxiety and depression for a good portion of my life. And to be very honest, I had no idea that I was struggling with anxiety and depression. And so over the last few years, in having more conversations with friends and family who are professional Black women, it became very clear to me that anxiety and depression is not discussed enough, one, in the community, but when it comes to professional Black women, there is this expectation that we are supposed to know it all, we're supposed to do it all, we're supposed to be on 100 at any given moment. And that expectation creates a lot of anxiety, and it could lead to depression. In the world, I don't think they really understand that. I think that when they look at professional Black women, they see, a warrior, they see a superwoman, and they don't expect us to fail. They don't expect us to make mistakes. They expect us to keep going, but we can't keep going, right? There is there's detriment to always being on 100. And I don't think that society understands how these expectations, how these pressures affect this particular group, because again, we're professional Black women. So we're talking about lawyers, doctors, accountants, engineers who are operating at 150 any given day in their workspaces, breaking glass ceilings, climbing ladders, dealing with all sorts of discrimination, all sorts of sexism, racism, all the isms in the workspace. And then we have to leave that workspace and come home to then many times, be the head of households in our own homes, even when there are men present. In our communities, you find that it's a lot of professional Black women who are at the forefront of causes, and it's exhausting.
Anxiety is significant impact on your nervous system. It's an increase of internal distress that impacts your overall functioning, especially in areas of occupation, interpersonal relationships, as well as school performance. Depression is a mood disorder, and that typically shows up as increased sadness, helplessness, hopelessness, loss of interest in certain hobbies that you once had an interest in, like maybe sex or certain forms of pleasure, and no longer interested in maybe sleeping too much or not sleeping enough.
Yes, I struggle with both.
Yes, I have dealt with anxiety and depression.
And I have been diagnosed with both anxiety and depression. I was first diagnosed in 2019 at the age of 31. So I think I've probably dealt with that for my entire life, but I didn't have an official diagnosis until I was 31 years old.
I have struggled with anxiety at various points in my life, not on a continuous basis, but at critical times in my life, yes.
Anxiety, absolutely, especially after I gave birth to my first son. And it's something that I wasn't particularly looking out for. It wasn't something that I was expecting, so it kind of caught me off guard, and I didn't really have the tools to deal with it because I wasn't really expecting it.
We're in 2023, 2022, 2021. So 2021, at least that's when I realized I was dealing with anxiety and depression. So it's been about, a year and a half?
I've suffered with depression for a very long time. I'm pretty sure it started around my childhood. I don't think that I had the words, or I really knew that I was struggling with anxiety. I might have been struggling with anxiety around that time, but I didn't really know about it until high school. So depression, early childhood, but I think both anxiety and depression happened. I became more conscious of both of them during high school.
Probably my time in law school is probably when I experienced it the most. That's when I noticed that I would go into these bouts of overthinking about, my day, pre-planning, fortune telling is one of my huge symptoms of my anxiety. Being very, very stressed out about timing and being somewhere on time, sometimes overly preparing for trips. It was in law school when I first started really, really noticing that my anxiety was starting to kick in. My depression, I honestly think, going back into my childhood, especially in my probably preteen stages, I think is when I noticed the depression. For me, the symptoms back then were going through these bouts of being very, very social and then getting really antisocial, where I would just lay in the house and sleep for days, not wanting to be bothered. My room was in the basement, so it was very convenient for me to board up my window, make it extremely dark, and lock myself in the room. I would hear guests coming to visit us, and I would always pretend to be asleep so no one would really bother me. And then I would literally sleep, like I said, for days and days on end. So depression, childhood, but the anxiety in my late 20s.
So while I hadn't dealt with anxiety to this extent before, I've dealt with it in smaller, I guess maybe smaller doses, you can say, before, absolutely. So, being a lawyer and being a executive, a high level executive in a, Fortune 500 company, that role is very, very anxiety inducing. It's a lot of pressure, it's high pressure, a lot of eyes on you. Also when you have a team, and some direct reports, it's just a lot of pressure. So yes, I've dealt with anxiety, just, trying to meet deadlines, trying to close deals, dealing with high ticket deals, like high priority deals, like highly visible deals. And so it comes with a lot of pressure. And so certainly have those moments where you're just like, whew.
If someone is experiencing anxiety and or depression, it could show up in many different ways. And so if someone is experiencing anxiety, some presentations that they may experience may be tension in the body, restlessness, increased heart rate, dysregulation of nervous system, not really sure, sweaty palms. Those could be some symptoms that you may have if you experience anxiety. If you experience depression, some signs could be irritability, loss of interest in things that once kept your interest, sadness, definitely helplessness, hopelessness may be present, and feeling like you haven't had enough sleep or you can't sleep enough, too much sleep.
So some of the symptoms that I recalled experiencing in high school, I was just depressed. I had this cloud over me that just would not budge. It would not move. I was involved in a lot of things. So it was very hard for me to really express to anyone that I was struggling because I didn't look like I was struggling. But when I was by myself, I was experiencing this cloud, this darkness, crying spells, was tired all the time. I just had very terrible thoughts of self-harm.
Headaches, chest pains, blurred vision, just this pressure, heavy pressure, and not a crier. So if I cried during all of that or with one other symptom, then I knew something else was going on.
Certain slight panic attacks and always constantly worrying about your work products, constantly worrying about feedback, really finding it hard to relax, finding it hard to check out even when you walk out of the office or during, the pandemic period when you log off, just still constantly thinking about your to-do list and things that I have to do and deals that I need to close and it's just this constant worry and weight on your shoulder of all the things that you have to do and all the things you need to accomplish, and you just find it really hard to relax.
Anxiety and depression can have significant impact and effects on the human body. The brain, when it's experiencing anxiety and depression, it sends chemicals from our brain to our entire body. So it can affect our cardiovascular system, respiratory systems, even digestive systems, right? Sometimes people have stomach issues with the presentation and think that it's something that's caused medically, when in fact it may be something that it has an anxiety diagnosis versus something that is just medical. So it may be more mental health. So definitely anxiety and depression has an impact on our body. When we are experiencing anxiety and depression, there are stress hormones such as cortisol that can flow from the amygdala part of our brain that impacts our overall functioning, right? It can also actually signal your nervous system, right? And so you can experience some stress responses like fight or flight or freeze or fawn response. And so fighting, you're building up this resistance with, what's going on, what's coming up for me, right? And flight is avoidance. or freeze, stagnation, and fawn, people pleasing. The idea is that it's a stress response to avoid conflict. And so when we are experiencing anxiety or depression, it's a complete dysregulation of our nervous system that definitely impacts our body and has long-lasting effects. In regards to depression, depression can also impact when you have chronic depression, right? So for a long period of time, if you're experiencing depressive symptoms, it can definitely have an impact on your overall system. The nervous system included, also the hippocampus part of our brain, right? So the hippocampus is in charge of memory and learning. And so all of our systems, I can't stress this enough, are connected.
So how have anxiety and depression affected my life? I will say that it just puts up a brick wall. It's weird. Anxiety and depression kind of puts you, like I said, in a box, right? Where now you just feel closed off from the world. It almost makes you feel like you don't even belong here either. Like you have moments where you're wondering, now you're questioning things, right? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? What is my purpose? Also, it puts you in a place, especially anxiety, it puts you in a place where now you just have a sense of loss of control, right? Where you don't have, you feel like you don't have control of anything that's going on, anything, whether it's bad or good, and you just feel out of place. And then you also feel alone. Even though you may be in a room with people who love you, people who care about you, you just feel like you're walking through darkness alone. It's a horrible feeling.
My anxiety and depression, I think, has affected my career because I find it hard to say no to things. And I think that I worry that I'll be perceived as not being capable of doing work, even though like I know I'll be exhausted, or I would limit that amount of time I will have for myself by saying no to some extracurriculars. For example, it's made me stay at jobs longer than I probably should have for my own mental health because of the worrying and trying to figure out plan A, B, and C on like, what would I do after this? How would people perceive me? Oh, I said, I would always have a career in this, and if I choose to change it now, how would that look? So the overthinking, I think, has kept me in places longer than I probably should have been career-wise.
I think anxiety has taught me great lessons about when to say no, how much to take on, when to pull myself out of certain situations so that I do not experience the sense of overwhelm. So I think, being able to experience it a handful of times, I'm able to now manage my lifestyle and manage tasks and work really well.
So the ways dealing with anxiety affects me is just like I'm just always on edge. And sometimes I'm not bringing my best self for my personal family because I'm always thinking about I need to do this and I need to close this deal and I need to get to finish out this agreement. And so I'm constantly always on edge, and the people around me, they feel it. And, so those are my family members, they feel it. And I'm just always on edge. I'm never able to relax. So they're not getting the relaxed version of me. And I certainly, my loved ones should be getting the best of me, and it should not be my coworkers, and it should not be these people that I'm trying to close the deals for that are getting the best of me. It should be my loved ones. So
I learned a lot from the creation of this film, and one thing that comes to mind is that we are not alone. Black women are not alone in this struggle of anxiety and depression. For the longest time, I don't know why, but I would think that maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the way that I'm doing things. Maybe it's my environment. I internalized what I was going through and convinced myself that no one else can be going through this. But in hearing these stories from the different women, hearing them be so vulnerable about their journey, I'm like, whoa, I went through that exact same thing. Like every time, they spoke, I was like, that's me, that's me, that's me. And it was comforting ironically enough, because I'm like, oh, it's not just me. It's, I'm not the only one going through this. And it's crazy because I was doing to them what people do to me. I was looking at them as they're talking. I'm like, no way. No way she could be going through this. No way she went through that. She's so polished. She's so well dressed. She's a boss at her job. Like, how is this possible? So I had to actually take a step back and say, wow, I'm doing to these women what people do to me. And so that was a very eye-opening experience, because I think a lot of us do that. We look at others and it's almost as if like we can't believe what they're going through. And sometimes we don't believe what they're going through. And that's dangerous. And so that I would say was a big eye-opening thing for me. That's one of the major things I learned, is that we all are in this struggle together, regardless of how high you are up the ladder.
Having anxiety and depression, I don't think actually impacted my job. My job contributed to the anxiety and depression, I'm gonna say. Now, first and foremost, I'm gonna start by saying that I love being a nurse. I've been a nurse for 12 years, and there's no bigger pride that I have than caring for other people. However, when you walk in and you're taking care of patients and now people are in need, right? It's the weirdest thing. The moment you walk into work, you automatically go into the zone where, especially if you're a really good nurse, you automatically just assume that in order for me to give my patients everything and be able to take care of everything, I have to put my needs in the background. And during COVID, that was heightened, right? Because now you're dealing with a pandemic, everybody's on a lockdown. Everybody's able to stay home, do what they do, have fun with their family. Where now us nurses and doctors too, like basically everybody in the medical profession, so I'm not gonna just limit it to nurses, we're the ones now running towards all of this. And then we're running towards all of this and seeing what it's actually doing people. You're going in, you're not in contact with your family and friends. Like for me, I was isolated, right? I live alone, so now I have family, siblings, all that stuff I wasn't able to see much of during the pandemic. Then you're going into work, and then now you're putting your needs away to take care of the patients that you have. And then the patients, they're really sick. You're doing everything that you can for them. Even though you're doing everything that you can for them, nothing's working. They're deteriorating. They're getting worse. All in the while, I remembered, especially in the hospital that I worked in during the first wave of the pandemic, there was no room for the COVID patients. Like certain units on the hospital shut down just to convert those units into COVID units. And some of these units, there were no bathrooms in the unit, so you couldn't. So even if you needed to use the bathroom, you couldn't. You would basically have to take off your mask, take off your gown, take off everything to walk out of the unit to go and use the restroom. And because we had to do that, we weren't doing it. We weren't drinking water. We weren't taking bathroom breaks. Half of us were going through the night, not taking breaks, not taking care of ourselves. In addition to that, going back to now the patients, you're seeing them, they're ill. You're doing everything you can for them. They're not getting better. Then families are calling, wanting to know information about their loved ones. Loved ones are not doing well, they're not able to come in. So now you're taking on their stress. So now you're taking on the stress of the patient, the stress of the family members. You're dealing with your own stressors, right? Of not being able to take care of yourself while you're caring for your patients. And then it was stressful. It was stressful. And even now that things have slowed dolike in terms of the COVID patients and all that stuff. Oh, and let me go back to the fact that then these patients were dying. They were dying like dropping like flies. Today I would take care of patients, do everything I can for them. Literally the next day you come in, they're gone. You're taking care of a patient during the night, doing everything they can for them, they're gone. Then now families are coming in and grieving them, and you have to internalize all of that. It was hard. It was hard. So then now, and at the time, I don't remember feeling like I was being affected, like all of that was affecting me. You're still pushing, because as nurses or healthcare providers, we deal with death every day. we're the ones going to work every day. So while there are people out there who have certain jobs where they don't have to deal with life and death, we're facing it every single day. The reality of death, the reality of getting sick, we're dealing with it every day. So then now imagine, even now, the pandemic has toned down, and I still go to work. I work in the ICU. I'm dealing with life or death every single day.
Depression and anxiety has really impacted my career. I think that from college, it's been hard for me to really concentrate and focus. I didn't realize that one of the symptoms of depression was like brain fog and extreme fatigue. So that was often a battle for me because I had a lot of work to do, but I was always tired and I couldn't remember information. I studied science and I had a lot of information to retain, and I was struggling a lot with retaining information. Personally, that fed into my depression. Into my imposter syndrome, because I felt that I just couldn't really learn the material and I couldn't grasp the material because it was me. Like, I wasn't prepared. I didn't belong here. And that just continued to feed into my depressive episode and just really fed into my anxiety. But in graduate school, I did decide to go back to therapy, and that helped a lot. That probably saved my life again, but it honestly has impacted me a lot. I still struggle a lot with my depression and my anxiety. And then during graduate school, I experienced a lot of racial trauma, which didn't help at all.
Has my career been affected by the anxiety? Especially when I was pregnant and still working, I was just extremely burnt out. And having that anxiety, that pressure didn't help. And by the time I went on maternity leave, I was just so burnt out, and I was just ready to I'm good. Like, I need this maternity leave. I just need to step away from this career for a second. And that burnout is real. And the burnout makes you tired, and you're just constantly worrying. You're just these panic attacks. Like, it's very real. And that does affect your career a bit, because you're just, when your pressure is so high, sometimes you crack, you know what I mean? And you're just always like, oh, I gotta be at my best. And you're just always just constant state of worry. It does affect your career.
With being an angry Black woman, she's going through something. She has an issue. She has, and being able to find tools and resources to help through that really, engages the person into the act of bettering themselves when they're suffering with anxiety or depression or anything of that sort.
I definitely think that Black women are disproportionately affected by anxiety and depression. I don't think that it looks the same for us. And so it's harder for people to realize that we are struggling and that we are suffering. I know for me, it wasn't until I started sharing my story with others that people were expressing how shocked they were to know that during those times that they knew me, like, for example, in high school, that I was really depressed and that I was, my life, my safety was being threatened by my mental health because I was involved in everything. I was getting great grades. I was doing all of the things. And so no one really sees it because I personally think we tend to have high functioning depression and anxiety. So it's very hard for us to be able to be diagnosed or for someone to realize, hey, she's not okay.
Absolutely. Black women are disproportionately affected because we carry this burden on ourselves to always be at our best, right? We have this strong Black woman mentality that, we don't want the others to see us failing. You know, we don't want them to see at our worst. We don't want to feed into any misconceptions about us not being excellent, about us not putting out great work product, about us being angry or being, you know, unprofessional. So we carry this extra weight and this extra burden on ourselves to always be this representative of every Black woman or even every Black person. So it's a lot. And then more, you know, a lot of Black women are really the strength of their family. They're really the pillars of their family. So you see them carrying this weight at work and then carrying this burden at home. It just gets to be a lot, you know. So absolutely, I do believe it disproportionately affects Black women.
I don't know if Black women are disproportionately affected by anxiety and depression. I would say that I think what happens in our culture is that we don't recognize that what we're experiencing is anxiety and depression. I think we are so used to seeing our elders push through, figure it out, find a way out of no way, that we think if we are experiencing and then have to explain to someone what we're experiencing, that we might be deemed like weak. And so I think that we end up taking this complex where we, again, internalize all this stuff and believing that we are incapable of being as strong as our ancestors and like not seek treatment or find other ways that are not that great of trying to cope with it. I think that's how it affects Black women differently from other cultures for sure.
In my professional experience, I have not experienced a disproportionate number of Black women who experience anxiety or depression. I think that this is the case because I don't believe that many Black women have the vocabulary of what they're experiencing as anxiety or depression, right? And so they may be experiencing anxiety or depression, but not know what it is. It's just like, oh, I always get nervous. My stomach is always hurt. Oh, I get this really bad heartburn, or I just can't. I just can't do it today. Or extreme irritability or anger, and feel like, well, that's just the way I've been. That's just what it is. And I think that if we have more open conversations like this, if we are able to verbalize and put names to what this experience is, then we may see an increase of more Black women being able to say, that's it. I never knew that that's what I was going through. I never knew that that's what I was experiencing. And so as of right now, I don't see a disproportionate number of Black women experiencing anxiety or depression, but I think it's because a lot of Black women are not sure that they are actually experiencing it.
I think society can do a much better job of supporting professional Black women and uplifting women by creating space for Black women to be them, to be. I feel like, again, these expectations that society has placed on us does not allow the average Black woman to be their authentic selves. We're always having to perform for someone or perform for something. We never feel like we have a moment to rest. And I think that if society could, strip away these titles, these superwomen, these strong Black woman titles, I think that could begin to allow Black women to feel comfortable, to feel like, oh, self-care, I can actually do self-care. I am not going to be summoned to be at the forefront of anything. I now can have a break. I think that because of the way that this world is set up, the fact that they're always looking to us to fix, to be present, we just don't get a break.
I definitely think that society places high expectation on Black women. And then in turn, we've internalized that. And we too walk out feeling that society expects more of us. And I thought about this question because now I think about when I go to work and I feel like, and then like, let's say if I'm at work and I'm with another black nurse or whatever, we crack it. And although we crack jokes, there's reality to it for us where we're like, oh, well, we can't do this because, we black. We can't do stuff like that because we do it. Oh no, we can't do what they do because it's constant. We constantly do it. So it doesn't have to be, I don't care what anybody says. I don't have no studies. I can't give you numbers, but I know for me, even just walking out in society, I just know that there are just certain things I cannot do just because I'm a black woman and it will not fly. You know what I mean? And we can't talk like this because you already know how's it going to be seen. Oh, we can't dress this way because you already know how it's going to be seen. They get to do this, but they can do it because they're not black. So yes, definitely.
I do believe that cultural and societal pressures do impact the way that Black women experience anxiety and depression. 100%. This is a very difficult topic because I feel like Black women have been identified as being the strong ones, the ones that can always take on everything, and they better look damn good while they're doing it, right? And so this goes back historically from slave masters, right? Us being able to take care of all the children, making sure that everything is good, not saying a peep, right? You even if you're feeling something, you better not let them see you sweat. They better not know, right? And so we start internalizing this, and this is the behavior and presentation that has been modeled for us generation after generation after generation. It's not until we have these conversations and gain these knowledge that we realize, no, this is problematic. This is impacting my life in a very negative way. This is making me not being able to function to my full capacity because I'm carrying this internal narrative that I must be strong all the time. I must not have any issues. I must present well. I must be on 110 all the time. And that definitely is a societal and cultural pressure that we must start breaking by having these conversations and be able to change the narrative for future generations.
I think there are very high expectations put on professional Black women. We always hear these negative tropes about how the Black woman is finally educated and now they don't want to, be at home with their husbands, raising kids, and those types of stereotypes that come with being a successful Black woman. And I think that we think about that a lot as we are moving up the corporate ladders, and also still thinking about whether or not we want to have families or not. And so we tend to kind of self-destruct in trying to balance out what we want for our lives, what we want to fulfill for our parents, maybe living up to some of their dreams and aspirations for us, and then society as a whole. I think that we are always in a position where someone is always telling us how we are lucky to be here, or we're less than, or we didn't deserve to be in whatever positions that we are in professionally. So we already had that chip on our shoulder coming in through the door. And so you add that with the mixture of our own internalized pressure of where we're supposed to be in our personal lives and balancing that out professionally. I think it just creates a really chaotic situation for a lot of us.
Absolutely, I do believe society puts pressure on Black women to perform, not even just the non-Black, communities, even within our own communities, right? We find our men are leaning on us to be the backbone of the family, and obviously outside in workplaces and environments with other ethnicities. Obviously, the pressure is always on us to perform because they're looking at us like they're waiting for us to fail, is what it is, right? So they're inadvertently in that waiting for us to fail, putting the pressure on us to all right, perform, be at your best. So yes, there's pressure from all corners, from within our communities and without our communities to just be at our best. And I don't, it's unfortunate, but I think that narrative needs to change, and we're the ones to change that narrative.
Looking for help to treat anxiety, or if you're naturally going through something and you need someone to talk to, it can feel weird if you're talking to the wrong person. So if I, like for instance, like I was going through something with work a couple weeks ago and I needed to talk through the situation with someone because, you know, a lot was happening and I did not want it to get to a point where, you know, I was going to just like lose it. And I had to find my therapist again because I did take a little break to talk her through it and say, listen, maybe I do need to talk to you for a couple more, you know, sessions or maybe for the rest of the year so that I can get through a couple other things as well that may have caused some of these issues. And, you know, just talking through it with my parents, they were like, you want to talk to who? Like, here's what I'm telling you to do. And that's it. And I think in some weird way, it was discrimination, but from your safe space. Because my parents are my safe space. And they're like, I'm telling you what to do. You don't need to talk to anybody. And, you know, it made the situation worse because they're like, go rogue. And I'm like, wait, I can't go rogue. That's bad. So I think, you know, there's discrimination there because you can go to certain people and they don't understand what you're going through. So you can't really ask them for help or support. So in some weird way, yeah, you can face discrimination in the safest spaces that you think you can go to for help, and you actually can't find help there.
Finding the right fit for a therapist is so important. In high school, when I had my first therapist, I knew that she wasn't a good fit because of how I felt when I was in the room with her. And I gave it a chance. That's one thing I'll say. Don't go in the first appointment with expectations of disappointment or thinking that you're going to be disappointed. I kind of felt that way. I kind of was already being like negative about seeing this therapist because I was being forced to see that therapist. But also when I was in the room with her, I didn't feel good. I felt like, you know, we kept having this conversation about God. And, you know, for me, like, it wasn't that I didn't believe in God. It wasn't that I didn't have faith. But that wasn't working for me at the time. So I knew she wasn't really going to be a good long-term fit. But with other therapists like that I've had, I've looked for how I felt. I didn't have the opportunity all of the time to have a Black therapist. My current therapist is actually my first Black woman therapist, licensed therapist. So I've had white therapists in the past. In graduate school, I went to a predominantly white institution, so there really weren't that many, there weren't any Black therapists, so I had no choice but to have a white therapist. But I would say for me, because I was dealing with racial trauma, but even if I wasn't, as a Black woman, you want someone who understands culture, who has cultural sensitivity training, who understands or has had experience with Black folks. I'm a child of immigrants. So there's another layer there that I was looking for. And my therapist in graduate school, she had all of those things. She was a white woman, but she was very culturally sensitive. She was very aware of race and racial trauma. She was the one that gave me those words to really describe what I was experiencing in graduate school. She worked with a lot of immigrants, so she understood the immigrant story. So you really want to look for someone who could connect to all the parts of you. And the first therapy session is really just intake. So you won't really get a good idea of what the therapist can provide, but you want to ask them. When I was interviewing for my current therapist, I asked a lot of questions. I asked them about, you know, what kind of style they had, you know, what are their long-term expectations of a client. Those are all things that you want to ask. You want to ask about some of the specific struggles that you have. You want to ask them if they have experience with your particular diagnosis, because if they don't, then they're not going to be helpful to you.
Yeah, there is absolutely stigma in our community, and it's even worse in the Nigerian community, right? there's a stigma that any kind of a mental health issue, or if you go see a therapist, or if you seek help for your anxiety or anything like that, that you're crazy. That's the stigma, that's the tag, that no, you're crazy. We don't do that. We're not, we don't have those problems in our community. There's this thing that's for white people, right? And it makes it worse. It makes, trying to seek help worse. And so it's like you're fighting that battle, like that uphill battle, to get support within certain communities, because there is that, you don't have that problem to begin with. So it's like you're trying to prove like, I need help. And on top of that, trying to fight against this just onslaught of like, you'll be fine, just deal with it. Like, no, we don't do that. So that stigma does not help in dealing with our mental health issues as a community, no.
So you look at us women doing our thing, you refer to us as Superwoman, as superheroes, right? But people tend to ignore that superheroes also, and mind you, they're fictional characters, right? So they're not even real. However, you're comparing us to characters that don't exist, fine, because of our strength, but everybody forgets that those characters also had villains, had people who were trying to tear them down. So now tell me why you would now call a woman a superwoman, black strong woman and all that stuff, but walk around as if she could just do anything and that there would be no forces opposing her, nothing breaking her down. How? I just don't, and that's the part that I don't understand. So what, she never needs help? Superman's needed help. Superman had kryptonite. You put that rock outside, he would fall to the ground and just feel like he's gonna die. So why do we mention, the strength of people, but forget that there are opposing forces that are out there to help to bring us down. So no one asks you're okay. No one will come out and they'll see you're a superwoman and be like, oh, she's a superwoman, you're good. But no one stops to ask you, okay. No one thinks about, yes, she's out here strong, but what could be the opposing forces that could be tearing her down that she's not talking about? And that's the part I don't understand. So we can't sit here and throw these terms like superwoman and strong black woman out there as if it's a term of endearment, but ignore the fact that even these superheroes that you're comparing us to had villains, had people things trying to tear them down, things that basically threaten their physical well-being, mental well-being. We can't, and that's the part I don't get. We can't ignore that. So that's it. That's all I gotta say about that.
I really hate the phrase strong black women because I feel like it continues to stigmatize black women and our mental health. It gives us this illusion that we have to be strong in every setting, that we don't have permission to be weak, we don't have permission to fall apart, we don't have permission to worry, really. We don't have permission to really express any emotions because we think of strength. You might think of like Superman or like some sort of superhero, and yeah, they've had breakdowns, but most of the times they're being highlighted for their strength. And when you're experiencing depression and anxiety or any other like mental health issue, it's really hard to try and like uphold that strong black woman trope. It's annoying to me because I feel like that's the standard. And a lot of people, especially in the workforce, they look at you as, you got it, like you can do this. And there's no question and there's no room for you to really break down, for you to really take a mental health day without feeling guilty or without feeling like you can actually, be afforded that mental health break.
Yeah, absolutely. So being a black woman, you feel like you already have two strikes against you, right? So it's the race and the gender. So because I feel like I already have two strikes against me, I'm already going harder than my counterparts. I'm already trying to excel further than them. So I'm walking in already with dysregulation because I am trying to show and prove all the time. And so in the workplace, what happens is we are trying to overcompensate and just go above and beyond, that you can kind of start experiencing what we call imposter syndrome, because you're always questioning yourself. Am I doing enough? Am I going to make sure that I have all the right answers? If I don't have the right answers, what am I going to say instead? How am I going to prove myself in a room full of where I'm the only Black person? How am I going to make sure that I am not only matching them, but I'm excelling all the time? And just always feeling like the people in the room are doubting you. And when they feel like they're doubting you, your anxiety is going to increase, because your system is like, what are we going to do? There's a lot of uncertainty. And when there's uncertainty, our brains like to create this sense of worry. And worry is just an illusion for us to kind of feel like we have control, right? So we feel like we have control in the situation, and we think that we're self-soothing, but what we're really doing is exacerbating anxiety.
I think a lot about this idea, like the strong Black woman, and what that means. And I think it's you'll get a different answer, I think, generationally, depending on who you ask. For me, I know that me and my friends, we struggle a lot about what do we see as strong, right? We see our grandmothers and our ancestors, right, deal with so much. And so sometimes we come in and we have these problems and we think that they're like too small to bring up, because like, you know, my grandmother had to deal with all of this stuff and she figured it out. So like, how do I look coming in with, you know, oh, I didn't get this promotion or I didn't get this job or something like that, when, you know, she had to take care of 9 kids all by herself, right? And so we end up weighing out not weighing out. I think we put some of our struggles on the back burner because we don't think that they are as major as what some of our elders had to deal with. And I think that it's a nuisance type of situation to deal with, because like my grandmother, yeah, she did all of that stuff. She raised all those kids, held down the household, but she also couldn't read, right? And so it's like, as we get more educated and we tend to leave the house more, it's like this generational struggle about what values we have and now what a strong Black woman looks like, right? Is it the person who, you know, didn't have the financial means to leave bad situations? Or is it the woman who has climbed the corporate ladder but now is childless by choice and, you know, still trying to financially hold down her family? It's a nuisance dilemma that we face. And I think, again, depending on what age range of people you ask those questions to, you get a different answer.
Strong Black women. So I have a love-hate relationship with strong Black women. And it's weird, but this is my truth and this is how I feel about it. So when I hear strong Black woman, I like when I say it to my peers, to women who I feel like need to hear that in that moment. But when the term is coined and used in a way to show, you know, that there's diversity or inclusion, or I'm picking a strong Black woman so that she can be, you know, this image that we're all looking or aspiring to be, I think it's used negatively. So that's my push and pull with the term. But I think, you know, it should be used in ways where someone feels comfortable enough to hear it, use it, you know, experience it, because it's a whole experience in itself. And people don't think of it in that way, and they just use it. And it's just like, I'm picking a strong Black woman, and that's what it is. But what does it really mean to be a strong Black woman? And I think we don't really think of it before we use the term. And that's why I have a love-hate relationship with the term.
You know, before it started off as a positive thing to just uplift Black women and to kind of exemplify how strong Black women are. But honestly, I think it's become a burden, right? Because it's just placing this burden on us to always have to be at our best, always have to be at 100, always have to carry the weight, never saying no, and always being the one to solve everything, solve the problems at work, solve the problems at home.
It's a lot. And just because you're strong doesn't mean the burden that you're carrying isn't heavy. It's extremely heavy. And I think we've come to a time and a place where Black women, let's set that burden down. Like, no, I don't want to be the strong Black woman. I want to be the woman that's catered for. I want to be the woman that goes to the spa every Friday. I want to be the woman that, is cared for. So let's place that burden down. Let's not have to be strong all the time. Let's be pampered. Let's really lean into self-care, lean into a soft life. I no longer find the term Superwoman to be empowering. I used to, right? In my late 20s, early 30s, I used to wear that Superwoman badge with honor, and I hustled and I did so much to set up my life that I have now. And I really leaned into that Superwoman persona, earlier in my career, but it's exhausting. And I'm at a place where I'm ready to set it down. I don't want to be Superwoman. I don't want to be the one to solve all the problems. I want to really, really take care of myself. And if that means completely checking out and just going to the spa and getting a massage, going to get a manicure, pedicure, hitting the gym, I'm going to do that. And if that means somebody's going to be left disappointed because of that decision to choose myself first, that's just what it's going to have to be. I'm no longer Superwoman. My Superwoman phase is over. I'm ready to be the lady of leisure.
So for me, managing my anxiety and depression now, it looks like never missing a therapy session weekly. I see a therapist weekly. That's something that I started in graduate school. I took a bit of a break after graduate school and starting my current fellowship. I wasn't seeing a therapist at all, which honestly was detrimental to my mental health. But now I see a therapist weekly. I also take medications for my anxiety and my depression. It took a while to really accept that I needed to take medication, but I've also been suffering with depression and anxiety for a while. And so I was very open to just trying things out to see if there would be an improvement. And it has made an improvement. I also like to try and keep a somewhat balanced life, a work-life balance in a sense, which is hard with my job and with my career. At the moment, it's very hard to keep a work-life balance, but I always try to do some sort of self-care and try to really stay in tune with myself. I have a really hard time reaching out to people when I'm in a bad place. I tend to isolate, but honestly, with therapy, that forces me to check in with someone. And my therapist is also able to hold me accountable for reaching out to others when I'm in a bad place and I need to reach out to someone.
Through therapy, I've been able to find some techniques to help cope with my anxiety or depression, whether it's anxiety showing up more or depression or both at the time. One of the techniques I use is massages. That is huge for me. I try to at least go once a month and turn off everything, and minimum, I know I have an hour of the month to look forward to where it's just about me. And then to get prepared for the massage, I have to go through this entire breathing exercise and things because I'm a mind racer when it's silent. So what used to happen sometimes during massages before I was in therapy is that the entire massage, I'm pre-planning stuff. I'm thinking about all of this stuff. And I leave there, I'm not even relaxed because I'm shit, I just made this entire checklist of things I now have to do. So now it's going through different breathing exercises that I learned through my therapist in order to help with my anxiety and calming my brain. Another thing I've found to really, really help is making sure that I spend time with friends. That's huge for me since I don't have any family in New York City. And so trying to pre-plan and make sure I am visiting them or we're going out. That is another thing I like to do. And then also just making sure I have some alone time. That is huge. So that's taking off of work. We have all these vacation days we never use. traveling. Those are some of my things that I use for self-care to help me cope with my anxiety and depression.
So some coping mechanisms are, and laugh if you will, but binge watching TV, putting my phone on do not disturb, lighting my scented candles, taking a bath, even purchasing something for myself that I thought I would never be able to purchase. Like, I will make that transaction that I wish I never had, but I would find that item and find joy in it. And then also just hanging out with, my girlfriends, going to brunch, having food, having casual conversations, talking to them about life, getting their experiences about what's going on. And that, even if it's a phone call and not over food, I think it lightens up a lot of, the day-to-day stressors that happen, especially when you're in a demanding role.
Yeah, so I definitely find that some techniques that work for me to manage my anxiety, like I've said earlier, self-care is very important, right? I now make it a point, I get a massage weekly, right? I don't care what bills need to be paid, what things need to be, that massage is happening every week. I definitely find moments I just need to step back when I'm like maybe after a really intense negotiation call or something like that, or intense meeting. Let me step back. I'm gonna shut off my phone, shut off my email, and just step back and just take a moment to breathe. Maybe even just catch a senseless, mindless show for 30 minutes. Some reality shows, some housewives, some, young, rich, and African, just catch a mindless show for 30 minutes and just be able to zone out. Definitely when I wake up in the morning after I've tended to my son, just have a moment to myself before my day starts and just be still and just be by myself with my thoughts and just really use those moments to recharge. And learning to say no. There are times when I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this right now, as much as it would make your life easier and it might make, other people's lives easier. Like, it doesn't make my life easy right now. So I'm going to say no, and choosing those moments where, you know what, I'm going to say no, where previously I would have said yes just to, please people, or just to get things done because other people are slacking. Nope, it's not my responsibility, so I'm not going to do that.
So self-care methods I felt like I've had put in place in order for me to cope with my mental health. First thing is realizing, because when self-care movement came around, it's weird. Now it became this thing of empowerment where people come in like, self-care. However, what I'm realizing is that many people, and that was including me too, prior to me going through all of this, it's like we put self-care in a separate box from our lives, right? So here's our lives. We're moving in and out of our lives. And then self-care is here. And when I want to take a break from this, then, I'll go to self-care, woosah, and come back out. But now going through what I've gone through, I realize self-care gotta be an every single day thing. I don't care what they tell you. You gotta put it in everything, because think of a cup of milk, right? I know we always talk about the proverbial, you can't pour from an empty cup, but really think about a cup. If you're pouring out of that cup every day and nothing is pouring into that cup, so you're gonna wait till the cup is like, you have a fourth of milk, a quarter cup of milk before you're like, I gotta fill it up. No, you know what I mean? Because now it's gonna take too much to have to pour in to get it back to, to whole again, right? So self-care is something I will start by saying that you have to embed in every day. So when I say what self-care method, I am jumping in the shower every day. I went online, bought a lot of, what do you call them? Essential oils. I'm mixing in bowls, hopping in my shower, and I'm pouring it over myself. That's me now it's like every day. I'm lighting my candles. I'm building boundaries. That's a big thing, building boundaries, right? And while people may make you feel like building boundaries is, oh my God, what are you doing? Nah, building boundaries is self-care. Because self-care is putting yourself first and knowing your limits, right? You can't be out here now just pouring yourself into everybody. You're not getting anything in return. And I'm not saying that you have to be out here looking for what you can give and get what you, and oh, I'm only gonna do if I'm gonna get something in return. But you have to get up every day knowing, all right, I'm going to pour myself into the world. There's gotta be boundaries where I can still protect myself, because self-care is protecting yourself too. And if you're not protecting yourself, who's gonna do it for you? Outside of God, who's gonna do it for you? You literally have to wake up every day just putting boundaries. And I definitely believe now that boundaries is a form of self-care. Being able to say, no, I cannot do this. My plate is full, I'm not able to add more. That's self-care too. Going to the gym. Going to the gym is big for me. Like now, I'm in the gym every day. I'll come off of a 12-hour shift, and I work nights. I come off of a 12-hour shift and I'm going to the gym, because that's like number one. It's just relaxing. It just helps me unload everything that my day entailed onto the treadmill, onto my HIIT workout, jumping rope, definitely going to the gym. Also, another big thing for self-care is proper eating. Now, I know we don't want to talk about, I know like, going into proper diets is like, some people don't want to hear it, but there have definitely been links with poor diets and mental health. You have to take care of your body every day and put foods into your body that's going to fuel you and give you the energy that's going to allow you to be able to battle everything that you do every day. If you're poor, if you're putting poor, like horrible foods into you, how do you expect to function, right? And there's a Christian woman that I follow, and there was a good analogy that she made with basically fueling yourself with proper foods and stuff like that. And one of the things that she talked about is, a lot of people out here are taking care of their cars better than they do their body. Someone will be driving, let's talk about a luxury car, Mercedes-Benz. A lot of Mercedes-Benz require 93 gasoline, right? So you put in that, what is it, 90, is it 93? 87, and I forget the other one, 89. I think it's 89, 83, 93, something like that. But anyway, you will not put the other two in your car. You're gonna put that 93 in your car, because that's the way your car is gonna run. So why are we out here putting 83s or 87s, whatever, into our bodies and expect our body to run? If we put the gasoline that was not made for the Mercedes into the Mercedes probably will take 2 steps. It might not even start out all, actually. I've heard of people having to pull gasoline out of their car because they put the wrong gasoline into that Mercedes or whatever. And then so if that car will not run with the proper, with low quality gas, I guess, right? Why do we think that we're gonna be able to do what we got to do with low quality food? We have to do better. I remember when I was going through, I know this is like long, but I remember when I was going through what I was going through, and I was trying to find my way out, and there was a voice that I think was the Holy Ghost telling me, you need to go on a juice fast. I went on a juice fast, and by day 3, it was the weirdest thing. I'm not gonna say the anxiety and depression was completely gone, but it was like a lot of mental clarity and physical energy. So for me, getting up every day, choosing the proper foods, is, to me, is a form of self-care. You have to, it's a way, I don't know, to thank yourself and give yourself, your body, what you need in order for you to be able to put out. So that's definitely another thing that I feel like has helped. And there are other things too I can't think of, but those are the top things. Oh, and prayer. Every day I pray. I'm talking to God every day. I'm sorry, that should have been number 1. That's definitely a form of self-care. I go back to my Creator to help me reset, to help me navigate through things and issues of the world and things I'm going through. Because again, for me, that's a form of self-care. Just taking a moment in the morning, and I'm still not 100 perfect at it, but I'm really working at it every day to build myself spiritually, talk to God every day, and pray. So I'm able to fill my cup. So those are the things that's worked for me thus far.
So how did I get to where I was now to choosing me? You know, when I noticed that it's draining me. It's draining my energy physically, mentally, emotionally, to be there for others at 100% all the time. I was like, this is not sustainable. Like, I will break down if I continue on this path. And so I just have to step back and say, no, I'm choosing me. I'm choosing my mental health. I'm choosing my physical health, my emotional well-being, my spiritual well-being. I'm choosing me, because to choose you means choosing you is at the detriment of my health. So I just have to prioritize me.
Honestly, struggling with anxiety and depression it's already an isolating journey. So the last thing that I would recommend someone do is decide not to seek out help. Seeking out help is extremely hard. You feel like you're being a burden on folks, and you don't want to share with them like what you're struggling with. But honestly, if I actually allowed my thoughts of self-harm to be successful, or if, the universe, God, anyone decided to let them be successful attempts, all of the people that I could have reached out to would have been incredibly heartbroken. And I hate to use that guilt of like thinking about others that love you, but they would want you to reach out to them. It's really your depression that's telling you that you're by yourself, that there's nobody that cares about you, that you're all alone in this, no one can help you. This is just your own fight. This is your own struggle. It's really your depression that's putting these thoughts in your head. It's not like, you're not hallucinating or hearing voices, but it's your own internal voice that the depression sounds like. It sounds like you, and it really convinces you that you're by yourself, that you don't need to seek help. But honestly, seeking out professional help can truly save your life. I've experienced it more than one time that it's been able to help save my life. But not only professional help, but also seeking out the people that are around me that say that they love me. It's a challenge, but it's me also challenging them and their love for me, and trying to see how they would be willing to show up for me. But sometimes that can be burdensome too, because everyone has their own life. They have their own things that are going on. And sometimes that can actually just feed your depression and making it seem like, no one's there for you. No one's picking up the phone. No one wants to come over. No one wants to hang out. But if you have a professional in your life, they're unbiased. That's what they're there for. They're there to be there for you. They're there to provide space and hold space for you. And honestly, it becomes too much if you just rely on one friend or one loved one, one spouse, one significant other. It becomes too much, and it becomes too heavy for them sometimes.
Some advice that I would give to someone who is suffering from anxiety or depression but is reluctant to find help is to just tell one person. I think sometimes we hold stuff in for so long until we have, a major mental health crisis, a breakdown, sometimes for people. And I think that just releasing it, at least to one person, could be the door that you need to open in order to continue further that conversation.
What I would say to someone who is suffering from anxiety and who's reluctant to seek help is to really think about what your choices do and how it affects those around you. And I think oftentimes people think for themselves, which is not bad, but you never think about what your decisions or how your decisions make an impact on others. And I think that's, a huge problem, because we only think for ourselves, but we don't think about our neighbors, the next generation, our parents, our family, our friends. And I can honestly see the impact of friends of mine who've made selfish decisions and how that has caused anxiety or PTSD or various things, in my own life, despite the lives of others that, we're affiliated with. So I think that's a main thing. You never know what you do today how it's going to impact someone tomorrow or even later in the day. So making those choices and really seeking help and being flexible to the type of help that's available to you, and the resources that help gives you is important.
Community of Black sisters, like my Black sisterhood is amazing. Like really leaning into that community has just been so eye-opening, because you find that people are going through what you're going through. You see how other people are dealing with their anxieties and dealing with the pressures in their life and dealing with the pressures in their career. You see how they're doing it, and it gives you the motivation to, yes, let me choose me as well. And also just that community, that sisterhood to lean into is really, really important it's validating. It gives you validation, like other people are going through it too. Let's go through it together. Let's deal with it together. So I love my sisterhood. I love my community of Black sisters, because we're really there for each other. And we're as a community placing that burden down, and as a community learning to take care of ourselves. And so I love it.
I was talking to my friend, and she was vulnerable enough, and she's, like you said, high powered in, our community. And she was vulnerable enough to share her own struggles with just a couple things. And she had about maybe 6 or 7 people that hit her up in her DMs and said, oh my God, I suffer with anxiety that same way. I once was clinically diagnosed with X, Y, and Z, and, I didn't want to accept it. And I've been struggling ever since. And just listening to her, be vulnerable on social media with a post that probably got like 300 or 400 likes, but she impacted, maybe 10 women, right? And I think one guy, she said, I think that for me was big. It speaks volumes, because you're vulnerable enough to say, hey, I know you always see me on with, just on, like powered on and on, smiling and, red lip and et cetera, but I'm actually on because I'm pushing through a certain situation. And, it speaks to the fact that being vulnerable enough to share your story and not being embarrassed, because someone is probably going through the same thing you are, if not 2 times worse, or if not even a little better. But sharing your experiences has the ability to help you navigate what current situation you are in. And I was talking to a friend of mine this week, and her mother's going through cancer, and I'm like talking to her, and she's just like, everything's hard, everything's going through. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I'm prying until she actually broke down, and I'm like, listen, it's okay, like, how can I help? I want to help. Maybe I know a doctor, maybe I know something, maybe I can bring over food, maybe I can just be a voice. Whatever it is, I'm trying to help. So the 1-word, 2-word answers because you don't want people in your business doesn't necessarily help you, because you're bottling up all of that tension, that energy, and it's just going to break. So sharing your stories, sharing your experiences really helps you to navigate your current situation so that you can find help. And if not find help, just release it, because it being tensed up inside of you is actually not healthy. It's not healthy for the mind. It's not healthy for the body. It's not healthy for your family or your people that are around you, because they feel your energy. And so, I think being vulnerable enough to just open up. You don't have to do it on social media to your 5,000 followers, but you can do it to, 1 or 2 people that you trust, to see if that can help you navigate your current situation. And I think that's, what I would share with folks, be vulnerable.
So my message to other professional Black women struggling with anxiety or other kind of mental health issues, number one, first of all, give yourself grace. Oh my gosh, give yourself grace. Seek help. Talk to someone. Even if you don't want to take that step with talking to a therapist, find somebody who is a safe space for you, who creates a safe space for you, and just talk. You know what I mean? Seek help. Some of the burdens that you can lighten it. Place the burden down, place the heavy load down. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. You don't have to save everyone and save everything. In your careers, do your best, obviously do your best, but you don't have to do it all, and it will be fine.
The message I want to send to other professional Black women who are dealing with issues with depression and anxiety is to know that you are not alone. I think that we tend to be in situations where we feel isolated, where we feel like we're the only ones dealing with something. And we do a lot of this comparison thing based off of how another Black woman appears. And I think that the introduction of social media into our worlds hasn't made that process any easier. And I think that when we finally start trying to compare ourselves to what we think another person is exhibiting or looks like or how their life is, I think that will help us do a lot better job of looking into ourselves and figuring out what we need to do. I also think we need to talk to each other a little bit more. I think that especially if you have lifelong friends or people you call really good friends, we keep things surface level a lot, and we do the hey, how you doing? You give one answer, you keep it moving, but we do not go into depths about like what does that really mean. Like if I say yeah, I'm okay, what does okay actually mean? I'm good. What does good mean? We I think could do a lot better job of checking in with each other, and that should help destigmatize the idea that we're weak if we seek out help. And we're weak if we, can't help ourselves.
Listen, I recognize that therapy is not for everyone and that you may be experiencing some symptoms of anxiety and depression or just not ready to make that phone call. That's okay. I will encourage you to engage with healthy coping skills that can help you still be functional. And so usually when someone is experiencing anxiety, it's because they are experiencing future focused thoughts. So trying to make sense of what has not come yet. Or if someone's experiencing depression, most likely they're experiencing thoughts about like rumination of thoughts about what has already happened and try to change it in this building of resistance. And so one coping skill that could be really helpful is being able to what we call brain dump. And it's getting all the thoughts out of your head and just onto paper. It doesn't have to make sense. It's not a journal entry. It's not Dear Diary. It's just every thought that is coming to get it down onto paper. And that could be really cathartic, being able to get all of the ideas in your head onto paper. Also movement of your body. So if that is exercising, or even what I truly enjoy is mindful walking. And so it's not just walking with your head down, but it's walking with your head up. It's looking at the clouds. It's looking at the different colors that you see. It's looking at the top of the buildings, right? And that really allows you to be in the present moment. And that is one of the best ways to tackle on anxiety and depression, starting there, right? Because again, anxiety is future focused. Depression is usually ruminating about what has already happened. So we want to do activities that keep us present. And so mindful walking is good, brain dumping is good, exercising, being able to connect with a friend, being able to do something that allows you to feel connected. So maybe that's going to your favorite park or being able to do something that brings you joy, like going to a museum or play, but being able to really be curious about your experience instead of judgmental about what your experience is. When judgment is present, it definitely leads to an increase of guilt and shame, which only perpetuates more anxiety and depression. And so if you are going to do one thing, I would encourage you to just be curious about your experience. This is here. What way can I be more connected or supported right now? Versus, you're doing it again. We don't like feeling this way, right? So less judgment, more curiosity in order to be the best version of yourself.
My call to action to anyone that is watching this documentary is to, one, be more empathetic. Mental illness is real. Mental health and wellness, these are real things. And like I had mentioned before, oftentimes we can't control what's happening. It's a medical issue. And, this idea that people are just turning it on, turning it off, that's not the case. People literally cannot recognize themselves when they're going through depressive episodes. It can be the start of, I was doing amazing today, and then in the next couple of months, I'm homeless, right? It has real life-changing effects. And so outside of the call to action that we become more empathetic and that we really start to operate as a community, the next call to action would be to the leaders of our communities, whether you're in city agencies, local government, state government, national government, whatever level of leader you are, to really make mental health and wellness a priority in whatever agenda that you have put together.